Okay, so software, right? It's always changing. Always. Updates, new features, bug fixes. It's like a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where CI/CD comes in.
CI/CD, right.
Continuous integration and continuous deployment.
Mm-hmm.
It's the engine that keeps that cycle running smoothly.
Keeps it going, yeah.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into two major players, I should say, in the CI/CD world.
Okay.
Jenkins and GitHub Actions.
It's fascinating. CI/CD has revolutionized how we build and deliver software. It used to be so manual, so prone to errors.
Oh, I can only imagine the headaches. But let's back up a sec. For those who might not be familiar with all the details.
Okay.
Can you explain what kind of problems CI/CD actually solves?
Well, imagine a team of developers, right? All working on different parts of a software project. They're constantly making changes to the code.
Mm-hmm.
Now, without a system like CI/CD, integrating all those changes, it can be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
You get conflicts, bugs, and testing takes forever.
Yeah.
CI help automate that integration process, ensures that all those code changes merge smoothly and any issues are caught early. Then, CD takes it a step further, automates the release process. So those updates get pushed out to users quickly and reliably.
So it's not just about speed, it's about building better quality software too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where these tools, like Jenkins and GitHub Actions, come in. They take those CI/CD principles and give you the power to implement them in your workflow.
Perfect. Let's start with Jenkins. It's been around a while, right? What makes it so powerful?
Jenkins is like the seasoned veteran
Yeah.
of the CI/CD world.
Okay.
Been around for over a decade. And one of its biggest strengths is its incredible flexibility
Okay.
that comes from its massive library of plugins, over 1,800 and counting.
Wow.
Basically, if you can think of an automation task, there's probably a Jenkins plugin for it.
Wow. 1,800 plugins. That's a lot. Can you give me an example of how a plugin might unlock some really unique functionality?
Sure. Let's say you're working on a project that requires integrating with a very specific service.
Right.
Chances are there's a Jenkins plugin out there that someone in the community has built to handle that.
Okay.
Or imagine you need to implement a very complex multi-stage deployment pipeline. Again, there are plugins to help you model those intricate workflows.
That's amazing. It sounds like Jenkins can handle just about anything you throw at it.
Almost anything, yeah.
But with all that power comes responsibility, right?
Exactly. With Jenkins, you have complete control.
Yeah.
But it also means you're responsible for setting up and maintaining the entire infrastructure yourself. It's like owning your own workshop.
Yeah.
You have all the tools, but you need to know how to use them.
Right. So it's a trade-off.
Yep.
Ultimate flexibility, control.
Yeah.
But it requires more technical expertise to set up and manage.
Precisely. Now let's switch gears. Let's talk about GitHub Actions. If Jenkins is the veteran, GitHub Actions is the up-and-comer. And what makes it so appealing, especially for developers already using GitHub, is its seamless integration.
Since so many developers are already using GitHub, that tight integration must be a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
If your code is already hosted on GitHub, setting up automated workflows with GitHub Actions is incredibly straightforward. Everything happens right within the GitHub platform. You can automatically trigger builds, run tests, deploy updates without ever leaving that ecosystem.
That seems incredibly efficient. Are there any standout features of GitHub Actions that really showcase its strengths?
One of the coolest features is something called Matrix Builds.
Okay.
It lets you test your code across multiple operating systems and different versions of software simultaneously.
Wow.
So imagine you're developing an application that needs to work flawlessly on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux.
Yeah.
With Matrix Builds, you can run tests on all those platforms in parallel, saving a ton of time and ensuring compatibility.
That's like having a whole QA team at your fingertips.
It is.
It sounds like both Jenkins and GitHub Actions bring a lot to the table, but in different ways. It's almost like they each have their own personality.
It's true. And that's what makes the CI/CD space so interesting. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
So how do you decide which tool is the right fit? Let's break it down head to head,
Okay.
starting with the initial setup.
When it comes to ease of setup, GitHub Actions definitely has the edge. It's literally a few clicks to get started, assuming you're already using GitHub.
Right.
Jenkins, on the other hand, requires a bit more heavy lifting upfront.
Okay.
To configure and get running. You'll need to install it on a server, manage the configuration files, potentially even write some custom scripts.
So if someone's just starting out with CI/CD, GitHub Actions might be less intimidating.
Yeah.
But for folks who need more granular control and customization, Jenkins is still the go-to.
That's a good way to put it. Jenkins' flexibility is unparalleled, especially with that massive plug-in ecosystem we talked about. If you have very specific requirements or need to integrate with niche tools, Jenkins can usually accommodate you.
Right.
GitHub Actions is constantly evolving, but it's still more streamlined and focused on providing a core set of features.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Cost.
Yes, the budget. For smaller projects or individual developers, GitHub Actions can be completely free.
Yeah.
They offer a generous free tier that might be all you need. Jenkins, being self-hosted, does involve the cost of running your own server infrastructure, either on-premise or in the cloud. That said, at a larger scale, Jenkins can actually be more cost-effective in the long run, especially if you're already managing your own servers.
So GitHub Actions wins for being budget-friendly up front.
Mm-hmm.
But Jenkins might make more sense for larger organizations with existing infrastructure.
Right.
It's all about weighing the options, right?
Exactly. And let's not forget about the community surrounding these tools. Both Jenkins and GitHub Actions have thriving communities of users and contributors. You can find tons of documentation, tutorials, and support forums online.
It's like having a whole team of experts ready to help you out when you get stuck. But Jenkins, with its longer history, probably has a deeper well of resources to tap into, right?
That's a fair assessment. Jenkins has been around for so long that there's an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience accumulated within its community. You're almost guaranteed to find an answer to any question you might have, no matter how obscure. GitHub Actions community is growing rapidly, but it's still catching up in terms of sheer volume of resources.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Well, yeah.
We've explored the strengths and trade-offs of both Jenkins and GitHub Actions.
Yep.
But how does someone listening to this actually decide which tool is right for them? Should we put ourselves in their shoes for a minute and think about their specific needs?
That's a great idea. Let's shift our perspective and consider a few different scenarios. Imagine you're a solo developer working on a side project. You value simplicity, speed, and you're already comfortable working within the GitHub ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, GitHub Actions might be the perfect fit.
It's ready to go right out of the box. And you can automate your entire workflow without having to manage any servers.
Now, let's say you're part of a larger organization with complex workflows and very specific security requirements. You need absolute control over your CI/CD pipeline and the ability to integrate with a wide range of internal tools.
Okay.
In that scenario, Jenkins might be the better choice.
It gives you that fine-grained control and the flexibility to customize every aspect of your pipeline.
And let's not forget about open source projects.
Mm-hmm.
Jenkins has always been a champion of open source.
Yeah.
And it's often the go-to choice for projects that value community collaboration and transparency.
It's almost like choosing the right tool for the job. Except in this case, the job is building and delivering amazing software. Both Jenkins and GitHub Actions can get you there, but they take different paths.
You know, it's interesting to think about how these tools, Jenkins and GitHub Actions, they're not just automating tasks.
Right.
They're actually changing the culture of software development.
That's a great point. It's not just about making things faster. It's about shifting the way teams work together, approach the whole development lifecycle.
Exactly. With CI/CD, you're encouraging more frequent code integrations, more automated testing,
Right.
and ultimately a more collaborative and efficient development process.
You mentioned earlier that Jenkins and GitHub Actions each have their own personality. I'm curious, how do those philosophies play out in practice?
Well, Jenkins, with its open source roots and that massive plugin ecosystem, it really embodies this idea of customization and community-driven innovation.
Yeah.
It's got a giant toolbox where developers can share their tools and build upon each other's work.
I can see how that would appeal to developers who really like to tinker and have granular control over their setup.
Yeah.
It's like having the freedom to build your own custom workflow from the ground up.
Right. Whereas GitHub Actions, being tightly integrated with the GitHub platform, takes a more streamlined and unified approach. Yeah. It's all about making the experience as smooth and intuitive as possible, especially for teams already working within the GitHub ecosystem.
So it's like choosing between a fully customizable workshop and a state-of-the-art factory. Both can produce amazing results, but the approach and the level of control are different. But regardless of which tool you choose, the underlying principles of CI/CD are what really matter, right?
Absolutely. It's about embracing automation, breaking down silos between development and operations, and ensuring that every code change goes through a rigorous process of testing and deployment. Ultimately, it's about delivering better software faster, and with fewer headaches.
And for our listeners who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by all these options and technical details, what advice would you give them?
Don't get caught up in the hype. Focus on your specific needs and the problems you're trying to solve. Start by asking yourself some basic questions.
Like, what are our pain points in our current development process? Where are the bottlenecks? What are we trying to automate?
Exactly. Once you have a clear understanding of your needs, you can start evaluating different tools and see which ones align best with your workflow and your team's technical expertise.
It's like going to a doctor, right? You wouldn't just take any random medicine without first getting a diagnosis. You need to understand the problem before you can find the right solution.
And remember, the CI/CD landscape is constantly evolving.
Right.
New tools and technologies are emerging all the time. So staying informed and being open to new ideas is key.
That's why we love doing these deep dives. It's all about exploring these tools and helping our listeners navigate this ever-changing world of software development.
And speaking of exploring, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Ooh, I love these. Lay it on me.
As CI/CD becomes more sophisticated and tools like Jenkins and GitHub Actions continue to evolve, what does this mean for the future of software development?
That's a big one. Are we talking about a world where software updates happen almost invisibly in the background? Or maybe AI starts taking over some aspects of the development process? I'm getting a little sci-fi here, but it's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is exciting. These tools are giving us a glimpse into a future where software development is faster, more efficient, and more accessible than ever before.
So listeners, we've shared our thoughts. Now we want to hear from you. What are your experiences with Jenkins and GitHub Actions? Have you encountered any situations where one tool clearly outshone the other? What factors tipped the scales for you? We'd love to hear your insights. And maybe, just maybe, your question will inspire our next deep dive.
That's right. Let us know what other CI/CD tools you're curious about. The world of software development is constantly evolving, and we're here to explore it with you.
So until next time, keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep building amazing software.
And remember, the future of software development is in your hands.
What are your experiences with Jenkins and GitHub Actions?
Yeah, tell us about it.
Have you encountered any situations where one tool clearly outshone the other? What factors tip the scales for you? We'd love to hear your insights.
Yeah, we really would.
And maybe, just maybe, your question will inspire our next deep dive.
That's right. Let us know what other CI/CD tools you're curious about.
Yeah.
The world of software development is constantly evolving, and we're here to explore it with you.
So until next time, keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep building amazing software.
And remember, the future of software development is in your hands.